Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and today what we are going to discuss about is psychology. This is basically chapter of psychology, chapter 1 of class 11. However, this is a very general thing that I would be discussing in this video. What is psychology and what basically it deals with? Okay, so that is what we are going to study. So, when I talk about psychology, psychology would basically mean the study of mind. Now, what happens if, let me give you an example. In the school or anywhere, I find that there is the child who is not behaving well, maybe suddenly started getting angry, suddenly would have started not liking something or being aggressive in nature, we send the person to psychological counselor. Okay. So counselor means somebody who is talking to you and who is trying to modify your behavior. Now, what basically would this term psychology would mean? Psychology would mean when I say I'm sending you to psychological counselor, that would mean the psychology who is going to study the mind. Okay. So if I say psychology, it is divided, it is derived from two words. One is known as psyche and other is logy. So, psyche basically means soul or mind. It basically means soul or mind. Okay. And logy means science or the study of. So, if I say psychology, to define psychology, I would say that psychology is a discipline where one studies about the behavior and how brain maps to the human behavior. So that is what we say psychology is. So it's a study of the behavior of a person. So that is basically psychology. And now if I talk about psychology here, I would now say that when I say psychology, it has two basic perspectives. So, what are the two basic perspectives I have? I would say psychology can be biological, and other is I can say psychology can be social. So, when I say biological, biological means what? Biologically means it is individual, the individual who is taking into consideration what I think. Say there is any incidents that took place. I have just seen an accident that happened in the news. And how am I behaving to that? How am I relating to that? What is my thought process? Am I telling that, oh, maybe the car driver was, driving at a very rash manner, hence the accident had happened? Or maybe the child who was walking by was very casual. What were the parents doing? So, see, I can have two perspective of my thoughts. Maybe I would first say the parents, or maybe I would, complain about the road safety, or I might again complain about the traffic. I might complain about the present road conditions. So that is my perspective about the situation. It is completely based on this particular thing, is completely based on what kind of mental process that I have. It is again based on what kind of experiences that I have. And the next thing is it will be based on what kind of behavior I have. So all these things, these three matters considers my psychology. Again, the perspective, what I say is social. Now, when I say social perspective, it is completely depending on the environment, the situation, where do I belong to, what is the society, the socio-cultural matters that I have. So all these things is related to psychology. So I said psychology is based on, these are the bases of psychology that I can say. These are the bases of psychology. The psychology can be biological, it can be social. Now, psychology can be at different levels. So, what are the levels that I have? The levels of psychology that I have would be, I can have psychology as an individual, I can have psychology in a group, or it might be organizational. Now, to say this, what will I do? Okay, now I'm saying, now psychology, the levels of psychology that I have. What are the various levels of psychology? First part, it can be individual, completely individual. My psychology that I feel. When a psychological counselor, you're going to speak to a child individually. So, school can be a best example that I can take. So, a psychological counselor is going to call the child and going to speak to the child individually. So, person is going to understand the individual perspective of the child. Second, it can be a group, a diag group, or a group. When I say they, that group is completely uniform. Say I'm talking to the students or set of students. Let me say I'm talking to a set of students of class 8, or say I'm talking to a set of students in class 11. So that can be a group. Maybe that was a group who went out without, or who took a leave without informing anyone, so I'm calling them a small group and I'm talking to them. And next, it can be organizational. So I am going to talk the complete organizational way. So I am representing an organization, I'm talking to the organization as such. So what modifications can be done, what all things requires. So that is what I talk about, the levels of psychology. Okay, next. Now, herein, what did I say? So psychology, what does it study? It studies, first one is mental process, very important. Second, what does it study? It studies experiences. Third, what does it study? It studies behavior. Okay, so these are the things that it studies. Now, based on this, I can define psychology. So, how can I define psychology? I can define psychology as the science which studies mental process, experiences, of course, and behavior in different context. So this is somewhere that I can define psychology. Okay. So now let me explain to you all these things in a segregated manner. Okay. So to explain the things in a segregated manner, first, let me come to the first thing that I've been talking about is mental process. Now, what do you mean by mental process? So, fine. So now, going into the mental process, now I am going ahead with this mental process. So, what is mental process? Mental process are activities of mind and brain, and it is related to cognition. So, this is how mind maps to brain. Mind mapping. And what it relates is with cognition. How do I understand things? Okay, my perspective. And we use mental process when we think or remember or solve. So all this is here. Think, remember, or solve something. So assertion, all those things. However, these mental activities are different from neural activities, though they are mutually overlapping process. So this is not something, when I say mapping, it has nothing to do with my neural activities. Neural means activities means my neurons are uh, there, or my control and coordination is taking place. Okay. So the mind emerges and evolves as our interactions and experience in this world get dynamically organized in the form of a system, which is responsible for the occurrence of various mental processes. Okay, so this now here mental processes, they will include what? They will include reasoning, they'll include learning, thinking, problem solving. So all these things, perception, so all these things are there in mental process. So this is the first thing that I talked about. What I talked about, there are various things I talked about. I talked about mental process. I talked about experiences, and I talked about behavior, right? So mental process is done. Next, I will be talking about what is experiences. Okay. So now, experiences, we easily understand what is experience. Experience is something that has happened in our day to day life, what I have experienced, what is the nature. It is completely subjective to nature. Okay. So it is completely subjective to nature. So, so here, what happened? We cannot directly observe or know someone's experience, what you have experienced. I cannot know that. Only experiencing person can be aware or conscious of his or her experiences. See, what you have faced, only you know. I cannot know that. Okay. So, experiences are embedded in our awareness or consciousness. We think as we have experienced. Okay, they're influenced by internal and external conditions. The nature of the experience that can be only understood by analyzing a complex set of internal and external conditions. Your number of querying, questioning will have to happen. And experiences are important because most of our learning is based on experiences. So, what we have experienced, that is what our learning is. And we come, and the next thing that we will go ahead is behavior. The next thing is behavior. And when I talk about behavior, then what is behavior? That is another thing that comes across. What is behavior? So when we say what is behavior, okay, so let us now what is behavior? Now we have it. Anything that we do is behavior. Pretty much anything that we think, we feel, I'm feeling happy, all these are behaviors. They are responses or reactions we make or activities we engage in. For example, we can say the cat is feeling very happy looking at the fish. Maybe the cat is feeling ki, gosh, I can have this fish alive. It would be very tasty. So, or maybe this female who is trying to procrastinate and is trying to state like, I haven't conquered my procrastination's problem yet, but just to wait. So it's giving some kind of hope that is there. So all those kinds of responses that we have, that is behavior. Some behaviors such as thinking, maybe simple or complex, short or indicating maybe a very short term behavior, it might be there, and sometimes it can be a prolonged matter. So behavior as such can be of two types. One thing which we can see, which we can see and which we cannot see. One is a covert behavior and other is an overt behavior. So things that, a person can, it can one can see, that is overt. Say, I'm laughing, so that is an overt behavior. Maybe I'm getting angry and it is completely shown. Maybe I'm shouting. When I'm angry, I'm shouting. So this is an overt behavior. When I'm shouting, I'm becoming silent. So what happens? This is a covert behavior because you are not able to see, understand whether I'm angry or not. But if I'm shouting at you, I'm scolding you, then you would know that it is no, ma'am is angry. So that is an overt behavior. Covert is something that I'm imbibing in within myself. I'm not showing it up. I'm being silent. I am not responding. I'm quiet. Okay. Or maybe I'm thinking something else and I am not responding you. Maybe what you're telling, I do not, I do not completely agree to it, but I'm not stating that I don't agree. So those kinds of behavior are covert behavior. So you can take this word cover. What does cover means? That I am trying to cover something. So that is why covert. And overt is I am going to open up. So always remember, oh, so I'm going to open up. So that is an overt behavior wherein a person is able to show up. So these are the things that is there in psychology. So basically here what we have talked is psychology, the definition of psychology, the levels, the basis of psychology, and what psychology basically deals with. Okay, so that's it for today. And next video when I come up, I'll come up with the various discipline that we have in psychology. Okay, sure. Thank you.